Surprise, motherfucker.
All right. Welcome in, everybody. This is the Philly Experience Podcast, along with Tyler Hood, Tanner Gilmartin. My name is Max Gretzula, and we have a ton to get into this week. So much going on in the NFL, a ton going on with the Sixers in the NBA, and of course, the MLB lockout as well has ended. So we're going to try to fly through this as quickly as we can, get to everything, and not have to push things down the road until next week. But guys, of course, we want to start with the Sixers, right? That was probably the biggest thing that happened in Philadelphia sports this week, specifically with the Sixers and Ben Simmons making his return to Philadelphia. But it didn't go the way that we expected.
My opinion, that sucked.
It sucked overall. It did. Social media was going crazy on James Harden. He was seen out after the game with Lil Baby, Travis Scott, having some fun at a birthday party. So, overall reactions to Harden, his play, but not only that, Simmons just not seem to be affected at all by the crowd.
I mean, well, when you're getting your ass, when you're handing out your team is handing out ass whoopings, you don't have to worry about the crowd. Like, I'm sorry, he knew what the hell he was coming back to. Let's be honest here. I mean, shoot, he was prepared for it. He was talking shit on Barstool Philly. Barstool Philly, they put out a post, basically saying that, they anticipate Ben Simmons come back, and then Ben Simmons responds with, he can't wait. He knew what the hell he was walking into. Unfortunately, everybody expected, including us, we expected the Sixers to actually show up, and they didn't. I mean, that for me, that was the most disappointing part of the night. The only person that showed up was Embiid. I don't know where the hell everybody else was. Harden played horrible. Maxey didn't get the ball. Hell, Harris had a little bit of a showing, but he didn't get the ball enough. Unfortunately, this Nets game revealed some serious flaws in this Sixers team. Everybody after the trade was talking about championship. And the Sixers are going right the Sixers in for the championship. I wasn't ready to say that.
Sixers are going all the way. They're going to the finals.
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily ready to say that. I wasn't one of those people that was like, oh, yeah, we're going to the chip. Like, everybody needs to relax. I mean, James Harden has this reputation, unfortunately, of coming up short in the big game. And we saw it this past Thursday. So there's some things that they need to get worked out. I mean, there's still chemistry issues that still needs to be worked out. So for people, penciling in a championship, I'm gonna need everybody to relax your expectations. Now, do I expect them in the next game? What, tomorrow? They play tomorrow. Do I expect them to come out and play the same way? Hell no. They're gonna come out on fire. So, this was just a one-game thing. It did raise some concerns, but if you think for 1 second that this team is still going to, just plow their way to a championship this year, you got nothing coming.
Yeah, I'm going to use the same word as relax in saying relax about this Nets game. It was a wake-up call, a huge wake-up call, 29-point loss. When you have guys like Harden, Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, you don't expect to lose by 29 points, even to a powerful Nets team like that. One thing that does worry me, though, is that Ben Simmons did not play, and there was still this big of a rout. Even so, but this was not a playoff game. I know we went into it as Sixers fans with playoff atmosphere, aspirations. With it's the Nets, but this is completely different than a 7-game series. And Ben Simmons was affected by the crowd. He most definitely was. He was getting on the bus. It wasn't even at Wells Fargo yet, and there was crowds waiting for him, booing him while he quick had to get into the bus. And even in the tunnel under Wells Fargo when he was walking, there was TMZ-style questions thrown at him while he was walking into the locker room. I mean, can you really be scared when you're behind guys like Kevin Durant and Blake Griffin and there's just reporters throwing questions at you? No, he's not going to lose his cool then. He's just walking right into the locker room. He came out with the ball on the court earlier. He was getting booed, but then he dunked and fans were cheering him on. I think it was sort of like a cat and mouse kind of game with the crowd and Ben Simmons, and he was just sitting there with his ugly ass outfit on the bench.
Hold on, Tanner. Why is everybody ripping the outfit? I thought the outfit was fly. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know why everybody's ripping the outfit.
It was ugly too.
I'm gonna hate
it. Anyway, this was not a playoff game. All right, carry on. They needed this loss. because they can't expect to just, as you said, fly through the rest of this schedule. James Harden played awful. I'm thinking he was just focused on that record, or after the game, he was like, well, I can go out and party because, third all time now. So, I mean, he the way he played, definitely concerning, but once again, just relax. This is not a playoff game.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of splitting down the middle here because on one hand, you're right. It's not a playoff game. It's one game. Seth Curry, just for whatever reason, could not miss a shot. We know that he's hot and cold at times. Listen, he's a good player, but I don't think he's going to shoot like he does like that every single game. I mean, he didn't miss a single bucket for the most part, I feel like, out there watching him. But Andre Drummond, he was shaken up at that ankle injury, but for the most part, he just was a big body inside. And I'm not saying he played amazing defense, but it was an issue. Embiid, listen, T, you said that he showed up to play. He shot 5 of 17 from the field. I mean, to me, that's pretty shitty. He got to the free throw line a ton. That's where all of his points came from for the most part. He finished with 27.
The only one that played. Shit.
Yeah, I get that. And that's the problem. Losing by 29 points. Harden 3 of 17. But overall, I feel like most of the team, even Embiid, he might have tried to be doing too much. But for this one game, this is a wake-up call in the sense that people forgot with Kevin Durant's injury that kept him out for months and months, that he's still arguably the best player in the world right now today. And for him, Curry and Irving all to split around 25 to 24 points in that game specifically. Kyrie Irving got the better of James Harden, both on the offensive end and the defensive end. I got a report that came out probably after the game. I don't know if you guys heard about this. One of the main things that caused the breakdown in Brooklyn between Kyrie and Harden was that Kyrie would always beat Harden and pick up in one-on-one, after the game was over. Harden apparently, and this is just a rumor, Harden apparently got frustrated and Kyrie called Harden washed. And I think in this sense, Kyrie, we didn't ever see this kind of defensive intensity before from Kyrie. We know that he's a great offensive skilled player, but when have we ever seen him give 110% effort on a defensive end throughout? So it might have been a personal thing for Kyrie, and Harden just did not look himself whatsoever. I think the more concerning thing was for this game, it's like Harden's that leader, and when he struggles, it feels like the rest of the team did as well. Maxey, this is a guy that we've all seen put up 20 to 30 points a night. And where was he at? I mean, he was airballed like 2 or 3 shots. I mean, he just did not look right in this one. And quick shout out to the minivan, George Niang. That guy's a baller from beyond the arc, dude. He is flat out a monster from 3-point range. But other than that, you can't really take much away from this loss, except the Nets got the better of the Sixers in this matchup. And it's frustrating because that the Sixers are going to blow out the Magic Sunday night. And you have to continue to fight through this regular season about the dog days and things like that until the playoffs actually roll around. But it's frustrating overall. Kevin Durant and Embiid getting a little chippy as well. That was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, and just real quick, Maxey with 4 points, 2 of 7. And how do we feel about Tobias Harris? Because you go back games and games where it's just like, why is Tobias Harris still on this team? Why do we have to deal with him for another season? He wasn't dealt at the trade deadline, obviously, but then in this Nets game, 4 of 5 from the perimeter. I mean, that's the player, the type of shots he was taking is the type of shots we expected Tobias Harris to be taking this entire season, and his performance but he's so inconsistent. And I'm hoping these rumors for this next offseason, I don't want to talk about the offseason yet because we still have this team with promising hopes, but it makes you wonder, is it going to be worth it next offseason, depending on what kind of player they bring in? I mean, this is a short window. We talk about the age of James Harden and the play that just now we witnessed him talk. We were talking about, but
oh man, dude, that's a great question, Tanner. Yeah, it definitely is a great question.
It is. When we've touched on that, we've touched about the window that James Harden has. We've touched on the window that Joel Embiid has, and there's a lot of things that concern me about that game, Max. You talked about James Harden not stepping up. For me, the thing that stood out the most was that Doc Rivers did not adjust the game plan. The game plan has been get the ball to Harden and Embiid through the pick and roll, let those two work off the pick and roll. If teams trap it, pass out of it to the open man. That's been the strategy for their 4-0 perfect record before the Nets game. They completely shut that down. And instead of Doc Rivers figuring out and seeing that, he continued to go with that strategy, and he did not adjust. And for me, that's a huge concern because Tobias Harris was 4 for 5. And I understand that Harris has been very inconsistent for the past couple of seasons. But in the Nets game, it seemed like he had something going. It seemed like you could have
Yeah, he was hot. 4 of 5 from deep. He looked a little bit more assertive.
And then we talked about Seth Curry. Seth Curry was guarding Tyrese Maxey. Why the hell was not Maxey moving around the perimeter more to tire Seth Curry out? When you tire Curry out on the defensive side, he's less likely to continue to consistently shoot that three.
Let me ask you this question. Do you think if you could take the trade back in this sense and give them a T. Stiebel and keep Seth Curry, would you do that?
No, because you still need that perimeter defense. And it's what this
I know, but see, dude, Stiebel is just so ass offensively.
The thing for me is that you have enough offensive weapons. You have enough guys that can do something and shoot the ball. I need somebody on the defensive side of the ball. Matisse is that guy where he doesn't necessarily need the ball in his hands to be effective. His defensive presence is enough. I think if Steph Curry was still here, you'd have 5 guys fighting for the ball, trying to figure out, who's going to shoot in what order, is the offense going to go in. And
maybe I'm just biased, because I'm not biased, but maybe I'm just, recency bias is a better word to use because Curry just lit us up and Thibault had like another shitty game. Thibault I wish he would do something like a little bit more consistently offensively. Like if he can't ball handle, he can't shoot. And the only time he scores is if he's out on a fast break steal or if he gets a lob attempt. And if his defense is not like his defense wasn't great on Thursday night. Like he got a couple of cheap fouls, and I get it. Kyrie's just going to do that to you, but like he really didn't. If he's not being an elite defender on the defensive end, he's like 0 out there, and it's basically like you're playing with Ben Simmons yet again at 4-on-5 offense.
The thing about Curry, and it's like I said earlier, Curry got hot because he didn't have to do anything on the defensive end. The ball barely got in Maxey's hands, so Curry barely had to work on the other end, on the other side of the court, and that was the issue. Curry had plenty of advantage to be able to get up them 3-point shots. I've seen in the past when Curry was on the Sixers where Curry would go up against a guy that would work him, and Curry would be so damn tired from working on defense, he's not that damn effective on offense.
Thibault just has to shoot that three, become that 3-and-D player that we need on the perimeter. Like he's got the defense locked down, but he has nothing offensively.
I agree with you, but that Matisse does need to step up. But in my personal opinion, I think this is more on Doc. This loss was more on Doc Rivers than anybody else. Yes, the players struggled, but Doc Rivers failed to see who the hot
know Doc
was.
sucks. So
that was Tobias.
Like we all know Doc is terrible. I think I might.
It's still not an excuse.
The random fan out there, they're probably like, "Oh, whatever. Doc is Doc," but we know Doc sucks. We have to win in spite of Doc, in my opinion.
But that's an excuse. You're still the head. He's still the head coach.
Yeah.
The thing with me and the Sixers team is that in order to be a good team with veterans on the squad and youth and the infusion of youth that this team is attempting to do, you have to mirror those veterans. You have to learn from the veterans, but you take a look at the stats sheet and you see Joel Embiid, 4 turnovers, James Harden, 4 turnovers, DeAndre Jordan, 4 turnovers. I mean, 18 turnovers in total for team wise and 32% shooting. And this is, you can't beat a Nets team like that. And you can't build off anything when you can't start something to begin with. All these turnovers. I mean, James Harden looked awful, especially in the first half of this game with the amount of turnovers he had. It was like, what are you doing? And then these younger guys come in and we have to judge them as well. But you look at the veterans like Joel Embiid, he played good still, but the turnovers, 4 turnovers. And it's just, it's hard for these guys to build off of that when there was no momentum in the beginning.
Yeah, smart for Doc to pull the plug, I think, at the beginning of the fourth quarter. I heard some people out there say, oh, he should have kept the starters out there, but the game was over.
I had an issue with
it. But see, the game was over, though. The game was over. There's no way in hell we were coming back. Embiid could get a knee injury. I mean, who knows what happened? So the game was over.
For me, that's just like a give-up spirit, though. Like, I that just didn't sit right with me. It truly did.
We were losing by like near 30 points, damn near 30 points in the fourth quarter.
I understand that, but like he started pulling the players earlier than the fourth quarter. He started pulling them like in the middle of the third, and I'm just like, dude, you've given up. And
Tanner, what do you think? You think that he should have let the starters out there?
That game was it was not worth Joel Embiid getting injured.
I hear what y'all saying. Trust me and believe me. I hear exactly what y'all saying. I just feel like Doc just gave up too quickly, and like that's never gonna sit right with me. It's not.
That's fair. I mean, that's fair.
It's
You know,
fair.
you don't want to look like you're throwing in the towel, but
Right.
in terms of future for this team, definitely the safe decision to at least sit Joel Embiid. Now, maybe keep Harden out there a little longer, which also doesn't make sense. But I mean, 29-point loss, it's rough, and you're going back to the drawing board after.
How about Kyrie Irving, though? I mean, that dude is so skilled
I thought he
offensively.
was going to score 100 points by the way he started off that game. I mean, he could not miss a shot on the ground, makes it, eyes closed, make it. I mean, it was incredible.
Oh, Durant started off the game, what, 6 for 6?
Durant, just and there's nothing you can do with that. I mean, both of those guys, if you're arguing who's the better duo, Kyrie or KD compared to Embiid or Harden, after that game, most people might tell you Kyrie and KD. And I wouldn't really argue with that because you're talking about two of the most skilled offensive players out there. And when that intensity picks up, like that game looked like it meant more to them because they were locked in on the defensive end as well. And, you know, if you're playing the Wizards or the Magic in a regular season game, and then that's probably to say to themselves, screw it, I don't really care. But when they're playing the Sixers, the way they came out, the intensity they brought, I just felt like they were going to win that game from this tip. And they just had more effort overall than the Sixers did. But with Durant and with Curry and Kyrie, just the amount of skill that they bring from an offensive standpoint, at least Curry from beyond the arc, but of course KD basically gets to wherever he wants on the floor and he's able to shoot over everybody. I think it's just a wake-up call in the sense that those guys are still going to be dominant. And as if this, New York restriction is lifted and the Kyrie can play in the home games, that's just going to become an even bigger issue for the Sixers. And Doc Rivers, I don't have any confidence in him able to fix this problem. Like a coach in this situation, when you have the firepower the Sixers do, he better be able to take them and mold them into beating the Nets. And I just don't trust him to be able to do so. And I'm not saying Steve Nash is this wizard, but Doc is just not the answer at head coach. I just feel like
he's not. He's not. He's not the answer at
coach. Yeah. All right. I mean, listen, and I think going forward, we know that, but at the end of the day, he's got to prove it on the court. And the Sixers, again, they played cupcake teams, the Knicks, the T-Wolves, and whatnot, leading up to this Nets game. It just didn't go right. So we don't see the Nets again in the regular season. But we do see a couple of good opponents still. I think Miami again, and we'll see how we match up. But we want to transition here. Let's talk about some quarterback talk. Let's talk about stuff that's going around in the NFL. Khalil Mack gets traded, and it's like brushed under the rug because, Russell Wilson gets traded and Rodgers re-signs and whatnot. So obviously, Deshaun Watson as well, not going to face criminal charges, it looks like. So there's potential here for an Eagles trade. I don't believe Howie Roseman's going to use all three of those first-round picks. The question is, what is he going to trade and what is he going to give up? I think Calvin Ridley was an option on the table. We know that he's not an option anymore because of the gambling issues, but it looked like Howie Roseman may have been willing to give up some first-round picks for a receiver, and is he still having that mindset for a top-notch receiver, or has his focus now shifted to looking for that quarterback?
I mean, you're looking for anything possible that you can grab at this point. You lost on Russell Wilson.
Just like, the Eagles, they suck. They just need anything they could get.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you lost out on Russell Wilson. Well, Russell Wilson waived his no-trade clause to go to Denver, which let me just stop there and talk about that for a second. Russell Wilson, in my opinion, just made the dumbest decision of his career.
Wow, dude, really?
Think about
no.
Everybody listen and think about what I'm about to say. And I need y'all to listen attentively.
I'm not even wanting to listen because it's just so preposterous.
Max, shut the hell up. So anyway, how many franchise quarterbacks are in the NFC? You can name two off the top of your head.
Yeah, it's Rodgers and Matt Stafford.
And Matthew Stafford is arguably. So, is there any other franchise quarterbacks in the NFC? No, which means all the rest of those slots are wide open.
Dak Prescott.
Dak
Prescott.
Shut up. Dak Prescott couldn't even sniff Aaron Rodgers' bootstraps. Please.
Wow.
Anyway, look at the competition that he has to go through in the AFC. You got Patrick Mahomes. You got Justin Herbert. You got Derek Carr. You got Joe Burrow. That's just four quarterbacks right there. And there's Josh Allen. That's five quarterbacks right there that you have to fight with for a playoff spot. Not to mention the fact that Mac Jones and the Patriots are now starting to get their shit together. Stop. All I'm saying is Russell Wilson should have thought about his decision going to an AFC team. Because now he's got a hell of a time going trying to take the Denver Broncos to the playoffs.
Broncos were a quarterback away, too, in my
They're
opinion.
not a
Look
quarterback
at that.
away.
They
They're
got
not.
a defense that's sturdy as a birdie. They got
have a
some
decent
receivers
defense.
out
Yes.
there. You know, you got Cortland Sutton. I mean, the guy's a stud, and he sucked last year because the quarterback play was horrible. You got Jerry Jeudy. No offense gone in this trade, but it doesn't matter because look at that rushing attack you got. Obviously, they had Javonte Williams, and he broke out as a pass catcher and as a rusher a season ago. He was a stud. I think the Broncos have a legitimate shot in the AFC now that Russell Wilson comes to town. But the rumors were Russell Wilson was, basically gave up on the season apparently in Seattle. That rumor came out yesterday. He just quit on some of the players when he realized they were out of playoff contention. But I think this is a great trade for the Broncos. You get, another player in there that maybe gets the Broncos aren't the number one team that people think about where it's like, oh, I'm fired up about the Denver Broncos. Nobody's like that. But now you get a face of I guess I won't call him a face of a league, but a Super Bowl champion, a future Hall of Famer. Can't go wrong.
Max, you're at a division that has Derek Carr, Justin Herbert,
if you're a Bronco
and Patrick
fan right
Mahomes.
now, if you're a Bronco fan right now, you're sitting there, you're like, shit, we got Russell Wilson, man. I wish we kept those first round picks.
Yeah, you know what they're also saying? We got $26 million to spend on some new targets or new pieces for this team.
And you think that's going to be enough to stop Patrick Mahomes?
Mahomes wasn't that amazing in the playoffs last year.
You're acting like Patrick Mahomes is Thanos when we've been proven that he can be beat.
If Patrick Mahomes won a division, which he did, which means now you're not vying. Now you have to vie for a wild card spot, which is only 3 of them. And hell, the other 2 teams in your division can technically still make the wild card on top of the other teams in the AFC.
Tanner,
all I'm saying is he's got a hell of a climb.
Would you trade 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and another position player for Russell Wilson if you're the Eagles?
For the Eagles?
Yeah.
If I'm the Eagles, I'm making the decision. I would not. Because I am for building around young talent like Jalen Hurts. You have Russell Wilson. You give a lot for Russell Wilson. He plays what are we thinking? 3 more seasons?
3, 4, yeah.
And then you're back at, is this guy that's been sitting on the bench, is he going to be able to step in? Because Russell Wilson so far has not missed a lot of games.
Right. But if you had the Broncos roster, then it's a different story.
Right. It is a different story, but we're talking about the Eagles here. I mean,
right.
they're more than just that veteran. They're not in the spot, in my opinion, to bring in that veteran quarterback. First of all, who's going to want to come here?
He didn't more than half the roster turned over.
Yeah, exactly. But back to the Broncos, though, and what T was saying is that this team is not just a quarterback away. I think they're in a great position right now for Russ to come in and make them a playoff contending team because their offensive line is in good shape. That's something that Russell Wilson has been complaining about in Seattle. Now they're a few pieces away. Maybe go out free agency, get what's his name, Morgan Moses.
Yeah, nice
and bring him in.
Yep.
Build up that offensive line. And I mean, that's just the best situation for Russ. And I talk about that cap space they have. They're already pretty set, the wide receiver group there. I mean, he's got to be excited to work with that young talent. But I mean, you're just pretty much at this point right now, you're building off of what you already have in good enough shape to start playing games.
KJ Hamler will be coming back off that injury too as a deep threat. Like they got some weapons in that offense, and they also got that offensive-minded head coach Nathaniel Hackett, who's now the coach of the Denver Broncos. So no more Vic Fangio, no more defensive-minded BS. This is an offensive-minded league. Nobody cares about defense anymore. You got to go out there and put up points. And the Broncos have been built around defense the last few seasons. One of the main reasons why they actually won that Super Bowl. But now you look at the quarterbacks around this league the last few years, we can all agree offense has just become more of a priority. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon. I mean, the list goes on and on. Same thing with Cooper Kupp, Odell Beckham, Matt Stafford. I mean, listen, the reason the Rams won the Super Bowl is because they had the best of both worlds, of course, with some high-end defensive talent. But the Bengals hung in there in that Super Bowl, and they were driving on that final series of the game, just came up short. But when you look at top-notch teams around the league, you need that quarterback if you want to make a run into the playoffs. And that's why I just feel bad for the Eagles because they just don't have that guy right now, in my opinion.
Well, no, they don't have that guy in there, and they're still continuing to build, which is why this is probably not going to be the most popular thing in the world. As a matter of fact, it's not. But if I were Howie Roseman, I would try to do everything possible to get Deshaun Watson. I honestly would.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I agree.
And once again, I'm going to lay out the scenario.
Yes, T. Finally, we're on the same page. That's what I like to hear.
In the NFC, you have once again Aaron Rodgers and Matthew Stafford as supposed franchise quarterbacks, and then everybody else is iffy. And shoot, let's go even deeper. Let's go into the division. If Deshaun Watson were to be traded here, automatically Deshaun Watson becomes the best quarterback in the NFC.
Not even close. Easily,
it's not even close. He's going to out Trump Carson. He's going to. We'll get to that later. He's going to out Trump Dak Prescott. He's going to out Trump Daniel Jones. So automatically, you can almost basically say that the NFC East division is ours every year. So, I mean, if I'm Howie Roseman, I'm shooting my shot. I'm talking to Deshaun's agent. I'm like, look at the scenario. Look at the conference. Look at the division. You can literally almost
get Deshaun Watson, bro.
Like, you can damn near walk into the Super Bowl with Deshaun Watson.
Is top. Okay. All right, T's talking about top stop it. T's talking about walking into the Super Bowl. You're the Philadelphia Eagles. T just said walking into the Super Bowl. That's when the conversation ends right there and then. Now I'm a guy who's rooting for Jalen Hurts, of course. But as I gave him that first year where it was like, okay, let's see what he has. Did he show us enough? Maybe not enough, but certainly a good amount where it's like, I'm not completely done with him. I don't want him just out of the city of Philadelphia yet. But when you talk about the situation with Deshaun Watson, legally getting more, I guess you could say, cleared with that aspect, still a few steps to go through with that.
AKA he's not going to prison.
Right.
Yeah.
But Deshaun Watson, strong arm. We've seen his arm strength when he's played. My concern is how long he's not been playing for, and whether or not he's still going to be that same guy when he walks out on the field. Jalen Hurts, huge problem with that arm strength and just his target shooting. I feel like he was making very questionable throws the entirety of the season, but there was some times where he did it himself. A young player like him deciding to put that play in his hands and do what he did with the football at times was impressive. And when we're talking about bringing in another guy, I don't want to talk about veterans anymore like Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson. Deshaun Watson, okay, I'll give you guys that. I won't argue that as much because, like you said, it gives the Eagles at least the presence of having the best or second best quarterback in the division. But it certainly does not give the Eagles the presence of walking into the Super Bowl. Not nearly.
I agree. They're not
for them to just add Deshaun Watson and assume that this team is just going to go power through the Super Bowl. There's plenty of different spots. I mean, we're going to have to talk about rebuilding this offensive line now.
I don't think. Listen, and they re-signed Kelsey, which I wasn't in favor of. $14 million for Kelsey.
Whoa. Now we got to disagree. What? You weren't in favor of what?
I just felt like Kelsey. Listen, I watched him get absolutely mauled and have how many penalties in that playoff game. Listen, I think he's a great player. He's been done a lot for this city, but time to move on. Take that 14 mil and give me another weapon on the defensive side of the ball. Move Dickerson over to center. And I think our offensive line is one of our strengths of the team. We need some more talent on the defense. We have nobody to rush the passer. We don't have any linebackers. And now we just pay 14 mil to a guy who's like 37 years old. I don't like it.
I'm not arguing with you about the fact that, the defense and there's pieces on the offensive side that needs work. I'm not arguing with you about that. What I am arguing with is I think you undervalue the presence that Jason Kelsey has on that offensive line. I mean, shoot, you want to talk about his performance in the playoffs? Who the hell, how many centers do you know that can really stand up against Vita Vea? Let's be honest.
No, nobody can. I get that. But he just got mauled like a bulldozer.
What center wouldn't get smoked by Vita Vea? He's one of the best nose tackles in the game today.
Yeah, I get it, T. I get it. Trust me, I understand. And we're nitpicking here. Like it's a contract where it's like you either agree or you disagree. I'd rather have that money spent elsewhere. I'm not super passionate about this topic, but you have guys like even your starting defensive line. Those guys suck anymore. You know, you have Fletcher Cox who can't really play at a high level. You don't have anyone who knows what Brandon Graham's going to be like when he comes back. You have bodies, I should say, that can at least step in and play serviceably in place of Kelsey. You don't have anything on that defensive line right now. Like, I don't see. I mean, the only guy I point to, I'm like, all right, he's got my back. Josh Sweat. That's probably it. Javon Hargrave, like, listen, he had a couple of solid games to start the year last season, but at the end of the day, the last like half of the year plus, he just was non-existent. And maybe that's because Fletcher Cox was, not double teamed anymore. They were double teaming Hargrave. Fletcher Cox still couldn't beat his man one-on-one. But Josh Sweat was the mainstay on that defensive line. And I just don't want to watch Alex Singleton playing in my Eagles jerseys anymore. Like, I just don't want to see his body in the Eagles uniform. I'm sorry. He's a good tackler. He's a good player overall. But if we're talking about having difference makers on this team, and I don't think he's a difference maker. And Darius Slay, another guy we haven't even mentioned, this guy's 31. How many years this guy have left playing at a Pro Bowl level? I see what the market is on Darius Slay right now. See if you can get a second round pick, somebody high that you can go out there and you can make another pick for, because right now after him, you have Steven Nelson, who's a free agent. We don't even know if he's going to come back. And behind him, who you got? Zach McPherson, the third round pick. Like, come on.
But see, you just answered my question. And I was going to ask you who the hell is behind Darius Slay? You're talking about trading away still one of the best corners in the NFL.
Yeah.
Who the hell are you going to get?
How about this, man?
Slay?
Like,
not to mention the fact that
Patrick
Steven Nelson is a free agent.
What if we had Patrick Surtain on this team? Like, it just takes one hit is my point. Like, you can replace a corner if you hit on it. If we have Patrick Surtain right now, you got a guy that's 22, 23 years old or whatever, and he's just going to be absolutely dominant the next 10 years. So it's not like you can't go out there and you can't hit on a pick is my point.
Max, yeah, but who was drafting Max? I think that's the part where you're forgetting.
We're going in circles at this point. We're going in circles here with this, because we all know how Roseman sucks and everything's a trickle down effect after that. So if no one has confidence in the drafting of Howie Roseman, then what's the point of even having a conversation about the Birds? You know what I mean? Because our opinions, we like to give them, but we're not the ones making the decisions in the draft room. So if Howie Roseman is going to draft well, then there's really no point. There's nothing we can do.
That's the thing. Like it, and then you have to go out you're going to have to go out in free agency and fill out some of these holes. I agree with you. The defense looks very bad. I mean, this is the worst defense I think I've seen in my life.
In a while.
There's question marks at every position. Damn near every starting position.
Rodney McLeod might not even be back. We get rid of Malcolm Jenkins, the safeties, the linebackers. TJ Edwards played well. Listen, I give him credit, but we still need some more help. We didn't go out there. Bobby Wagner is available, looking like he might get signed by the Cowboys. I know he's an option, and there's going to be some guys who are going to get cut. But the pass rushing is my main concern, right? We need to get a pass rusher in this draft.
I agree.
I'm glad you guys talked about this, because doesn't it seem even more of not the smartest decision to focus all your picks, all your money on one guy, one quarterback, and pay him a lot, rather than focus on all these different holes you guys made the problem that you guys were showing that, there's guys on the line that are aging. What are we going to do with the offensive line? Lane Johnson's old. Kelsey, one more year. Brooks, not here anymore. Max goes on to the other side with defense, all the holes with the defense. We're talking about secondary. There is so much to focus on with this team. Why change when you have at least one guy that can fill in the spot temporarily? I guess you could say until maybe he proves himself even more, rather than losing that, not being able to get young talent high in the draft. And that's just the way I'm thinking about it.
It's smart, but it goes back to the draft process. Like, you trust Howie Roseman hit those draft picks. Like, I'd rather get the established guy out in Houston right now, bring his ass in here and start dominating this division from the ground up. After that, he's just going to make everybody around him better. He's a top 5 quarterback in the league. I still have confidence in his ability. I'm willing to take that risk. But you make a great point. I'm with you 100%. The defense is horrible. You can only really look at 2 or 3 guys based on the 11 who play on the field that are like, okay, those guys are plug and plays. But other than that, I would love to get out of that Fletcher Cox, contract / get him off the team, however you want to word it.
Well, there is a rumor that Fletcher Cox is being shopped around. As a matter of fact, there was a rumor back during the season that Fletcher Cox was on the trade block. And it was possible that he was going to be traded before the trade deadline. So they're looking to off that contract of his and get him off the books. unfortunately, he's not the same player that he was before. He's not, and
I think they might have tried to trade him in the season last year. It's just they couldn't get what they wanted, So that's what kind of my main concern is now too. Will they get what they actually want?
The thing is, no, they're not, because the Fletcher Cox doesn't have the same value that he had before. He's not the same dominant problem on the defensive line that he was in years past. Teams see that. And they also see that you're desperate to try to get rid of him and that contract, which decreases his value even more. You're not going to get what you want from Fletcher Cox. You're really not.
Well, we'll see. Because we got to get to this MLB lockout situation, but we can go on and on real quick. Yeah, Tanner, go ahead real fast.
Well, let's get into this emotional topic for you, Max. This Carson Wentz trade. We're talking about football. Let's rip off.
That's why I kind of wanted to skip over this topic.
Yeah, let me run through the details real quick with the trade and the numbers. I tried to hit as many as I could. Forgive me if I forget one, but Carson Wentz, we all know, traded to the Colts from the Eagles. We're going years back. We're starting the trade history with him. Traded to the Colts for the third and what ended up being a first round pick, thanks to him playing over 75%. And then now traded to Washington. The Colts get 2022 second and a 2022 third that can become a second if he plays 70%. And Washington also gets a second round pick, but they have to pay $28 million to Carson Wentz. Who's the loser out of these three teams? Who lost?
The Commanders lost.
I don't know. You could argue the Colts lost too, because they've lost. They didn't even make the playoffs in the one season, and then they gotta just trade him away immediately. I see what you're saying, right, T? Because they got to pay Wentz $20 million now, and they have him on the team, so it can go both ways.
Yeah, I think the Commanders lost in this situation because, you're taking on that $28 million contract. Then you giving up so many draft picks to acquire him. I mean, and he's not even worth that. Let's be honest here. Carson Wentz is not the same player that he once was before. There's been a lot of issues, and there's been a lot of things to come out in these recent weeks about Carson Wentz in terms of his attitude and the way he approaches players. I mean, hell,
stories. It's the same stories from Philadelphia.
I read an article where, he had a problem with the Super Bowl run that we were on in 2017 and the fact that he wasn't at the helm, and the player to confront him is rumored to be Darren Sproles. And Darren was like, yo, man, you need to, shut the hell up and, appreciate the fact that you on this damn team,
Shut the F up for life.
Like it's sad, the fall from grace that Carson has had. And the crazy part is it seems like he doesn't get the point. He's not looking at himself in the mirror. This is your third team in 3 seasons. That's not good. Not to mention the fact that you couldn't even take the Colts to the playoffs when an old-ass Phillip Rivers the year previous took them to the playoffs.
You had
one game to win against Jacksonville.
Twice a year. Get them twice a year now. So we'll see. T. I mean, we'll see. I mean, listen, is the optics good from the outside looking in? No, of course not. But the guy is still below the age of 30. He's in a new team, his third team in 3 years. There's a reason for that as well. And you're right. He's not the same player he once was. But if you're Washington, it's a better move than Taylor Heineke, whoever the hell else bum you had thrown out there.
You get no argument for me on that.
Tanner sounded like he disagreed for a second.
Well, listen, Washington, you're getting a little bit better of a quarterback. I mean, it's not like so much better. We're like, all right, boom, he's a starter. The only reason you can say that Carson Wentz is the official starter is because of the amount of money they're paying him. You go ahead and you give these guys, which is unrealistic, but say you give these guys Heineke, Carson Wentz, the same amount of money, and you have them in the quarterback room, and you're trying to figure out who's going to be a starting quarterback. I mean, we've seen Carson Wentz in situations where he's sort of competes for that starting spot, and he flounders and he doesn't do well under pressure, this and that. Heineke is not a bad quarterback. I mean, he was impressive down the stretch too. The throws he was making, it definitely did not seem like a guy that they pulled out of a college class to come and be their starting quarterback. To me, it's Washington. You're paying $28 million because you're also paying that bonus. Washington gets on to that bonus. Yep. That saves the Colts $13 million. Also, they don't have to pay him the bonus just to have a quarterback that's like a little better than what you have right now.
Might not be worth it in the long run, but I think right now, short term for them, I think we all can all agree Taylor Heineke's not really that good. I know you trying to make it sound, but I don't know what
He's
it is.
not bad. He's not bad.
I'm not saying he's bad. I'm not saying he's bad, but he's not good.
Carson Wentz
he's
isn't good either.
He's not taking you to the playoffs. Wentz hasn't been good either. But I think if you're a Washington fan right now, I'd rather have Wentz at the helm and Taylor Heineke not. Now, do I feel good about it? Am I sitting here like, yeah, Carson Wentz, let's go to the playoffs? Probably not. But you got to start somewhere. Ron Rivera's a good coach. You never know there. I know the Frank Reich connection there. People want to go back. Oh, he's back with his man, Frank Reich. Obviously, that didn't work out. I don't think it's going to work out in Washington either. Look at the talent they have around him. He's got Terry McLaurin and a bunch of nobodies.
Well, unfortunately, that's the issue that he put himself in. Especially if these rumors are true and these articles are true about his attitude. He did this to himself. And I don't feel sorry for him. I don't. Like I
can't feel sorry for him. The guy's making $28 million, and he's a quarterback in the NFL. No one feels sorry for him.
Besides the contract, this is a man that Max, me and you defended to the ends of the earth. We were just like, when everybody was against Carson, we were just like, we were adamant about, defending him. And
he did lose to the Jaguars. I get that. But
disappointing.
It's going to be interesting to see because I know Tanner, he's got the season tickets, so he's going to get to see Carson again probably this year, depending on job situation and whatnot. But it'll be pretty cool to see Wentz coming back to Philadelphia. I wonder what the response is going to be. Who's going to get more booze, Wentz or Ben Simmons?
Simmons.
It's probably dead even, in my opinion.
Nah. All right. I think Ben Simmons still will get more booze if it's we see that.
You got to remember, Wentz's play was a main reason why the Eagles won the Super Bowl. So maybe he won't get booed as much just because he, in a way, helped bring the city.
There will be a tribute video.
The way he left still leaves a sour taste in Philly fans.
Crybaby Wentz. Yeah, we remember it.
We'll see.
Remember it. But this is a huge revenge tour for Carson Wentz too. I mean, he's going back to the Colts. He's playing the Eagles twice. This is a big opportunity for him.
I'm excited.
Max, does this mean you're going to be a Washington Commanders fan now?
No, I can't. That name is so stupid. What a horrible name they chose. I'd rather just stick with the Washington football team. I mean, that was starting to flow off the tongue a little bit better, and now I got to call them the Commanders. It's pretty interesting. And interesting, I mean, is horrible, but we'll move on. All right. Quick touch here on the lockout. Baseball's back, thank God, because we really needed it. And I think it's going to be improved. They're going to get rid of the shift after this year. That'll help put balls in play more. Maybe T won't fall asleep in the fourth inning anymore. We'll be able to watch a full game. So there's going to be some more runners on base. They still have to do something here with the pitch clock as far as getting the pitches out more quickly. And I think they have to cut down on this strikeout and home run ratio. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. I hope that'll, be better because they're going to eliminate the shift. And again, that's not going to happen this year. It's going to happen the year after. But no more runner on second base in extra innings, and double headers are going to be 9 innings again. So I think there's definitely some room for the improvements that are made here as far as people actually accepting it and enjoying, the decisions that were made. And then the fact that baseball is just going to be played.
Well, first and foremost, I do not like the fact that the shift is going away. I don't.
Really, T.
I don't like it.
Come on.
I don't like it because it takes away from the strategy of the game. If a team is shifting on you, that means that they know that you favor a certain side. You're going to hit towards a certain side. So as a player, what am I going to do? If they're shifting against me, I need to figure out a way how to hit to the opposite field. You're taking away strategy from the game. That's stupid. What's the point of being a player if you're not going to strategize?
I would agree. If this was last year, I probably would agree with you. Here's the thing. Like, they're not even playing positions anymore. Like, you play a quarterback, you play a center. Like, you have positions on a team. Shifting, what position are you playing? You're not even playing a position. Like, there's a shortstop for a reason. There's a third base. You're playing a certain position. Now, here's what I'll say. The rule can be, and this, again, T, I get what you're saying, 100%. Adjust. If you have guys on the right side of the infield, the hitter must adjust in order to get on base.
Yeah, it's a strategy. It's a 100%. Strategy.
But this is not more for the game. This is more for just the love and the entertainment value of the game of baseball. People are just going to watch more and be more entertained with more people on base. Runs being scored, not just strikeouts left and right. Balls are going to be put in play, and there's going to be hits there. And I know you might not like it because the hitters are getting away with some little things here. And they're going to cheat their way into some hits, in your opinion. and I get that side of it. But for the game itself, this needed to happen in order for more people and the fan base to continue to grow.
I understand all that. I hear you. I just
It's more of a big picture look. It's more of a big picture long term.
I understand, and I just don't agree with that rule. But at the same time, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I don't give a damn about baseball. This lockout has taken my love away of baseball away from me. It truly has.
That's hilarious, T.
Like you had millionaires fighting with billionaires over what? A deal that
you're telling me you're not going to watch.
A deal that everybody made up already. That it took y'all 99 days for y'all to finally come together, put your egos to the side and come together. Look at that.
I mean, T, there was so much. There's so much to get on the same board with revenue sharing, and all those rules in between. Because in the middle, I thought there was going to be another 12 days at least with this lockout because of how far they were with money and figuring out the taxes and such like that. Where, I mean, you look ahead and the players, they want a certain $13 million difference with a contract in that aspect, and then the owners are like, well, you guys get bigger bases, so I mean, like, we're kind of even with that. I mean, it was just back and forth. Nothing was getting done. You would go in 17 hours, the players met for, nothing happened. It was just, I'm very surprised that we're talking about how baseball's on, but there's so much now that needs to be done. We're talking free agency, arbitration, Rule 5 draft.
This is hot. I'm hyped. I'm so hyped.
Mean, I love baseball. I mean, it's not my number one sport. I'm more of a football over baseball guy. But, I mean, this is, and people that don't watch baseball, I mean, this is going to be confusing. We're talking about, revenue sharing, securing visas and stuff like that, with arbitration as well. But these players, and this is the biggest part for me, they have not met with their team this entire time. They're not on the same page. I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see how these guys are going to be able to get back, adapt, and be able to play baseball with one another. I mean, I'm sure the players have been meeting, but getting on the same page back with the coaches and the ownership and stuff like that, it's going to be interesting to see how they adapt.
Let me ask you this question too, because you have Joe Girardi, who's come under a lot of heat the past couple of years. Yeah. I think this is going to help him because he's an American League manager at heart. He won the titles with the title with the Yankees. He was a player in the American League with the Yankees. He managed all those years in the American League with the Yankees, and now coming to the National League, it's a totally different ball game with no DH. Now there's a universal DH there. Pitching changes and whatnot. Double switches kind of are out of play now. I think this is going to benefit Joe Girardi. I think it's going to help him as a manager, and I expect an improvement this year.
I think we can all benefit from the fact that Rhys Hoskins don't have to play first base.
I would trade Rhys Hoskins actually on that note, because now we're going to try to dive in here to some of the needs this team actually has, and center field and left field are two big-time needs. Alec Boehm can't play third base, so he's going to have to play first base. He's probably – and listen, he had a small sample size of first base last year, T. We know that, and we know that Rhys Hoskins is pretty horrible as a defensive first baseman. So if he's going to stick around, he's going to have to play DH, and Boehm will play first. But that's not to say Boehm is some superstar defensive first baseman either. We'll have to see his growing process over the offseason and in spring training to see if he's legitimate first base threat or not. Because if he's not, that's when you talk about trading Rhys Hoskins, moving Boehm to the designated hitter, which is ridiculous, by the way, considering he was a third overall pick. You need him on the field. And then saying, hey, do you sign Chris Bryant? Do you sign Nick Castellanos or someone along those lines?
Yeah. Well, real quick, one of the last times we heard from Dombrowski was when he was assessing the needs for this Phillies team. Middle of the order bat, a closer, and a leadoff hitter were on his list of needs.
And they got Corey Knebel, right? Corey Knebel is going to be the closer, I believe.
Exactly. Do you guys think that this list should stretch farther with the top three definite concerns on this team? I mean, we already assessed that closer spot, but what do you guys think needs to be on that list?
There's also the Kyle Schwarber thing too, right? Because he literally hit like 30 or 40 home runs last year, but he hit him out of the leadoff spot, which is pretty ridiculous. That goes back to what you're saying with the leadoff hitter. It was crazy to see how dominant he was from a leadoff standpoint in Washington last year. So he's another name to look at.
Well, here's another issue that I'm going to have to, bring up. with baseball coming back, guys with visas aren't going to be able to just readily come over here. As a matter of fact, one of our own pitchers, Ranger Suarez, he's having issues getting his visa, so he's probably not going to be ready for the next couple of months.
I heard about that too. He'll have to come over when he's eligible, and also work his way up as a pitcher to get back into that rotation. Right. Now, I'm signing pitchers left wherever I can. Left and right here. You got to bulk up the bullpen. You're going to have Sam Coonrod and guys that you probably forgot about even existed come back and play. But also, a trade probably has to be made. You can't sign all these players, but I'm still waiting for that first domino to fall. You had Kershaw go back to the Dodgers yesterday. You have Freddie Freeman, who might be going out there as well, which would be great for the Phils because he would move out of the NL East.
Well, I have a question for you guys. Do you bring back McCutchen or Barrera or Brad Miller?
No, those guys are so terrible at this point in their careers.
What about Archie Bradley?
Archie Bradley, who was, Archie Bradley, I could possibly bring back. And here's why. He was hurt a little bit last year, and I think he came back from injury maybe too soon. It just wasn't 100%. Looked like his velocity was down on his pitches. But McCutchen, I know he's your boy. He was my boy too for a lot of years. He just doesn't have it anymore from a speed standpoint, from a batting standpoint. But I think, and I'm not saying he's going to be a designated hitter, but he should still find a job somewhere else in this league. I just think we got to get younger, and I think we need somebody that can cover ground out in the outfield. And I hate spending big money on outfielders because there's so much more important pieces to a team than outfielders. You can find guys for low-end contracts or even draft picks that you bring up from the minor leagues that can play the outfield position. But don't you guys agree that pitchers are more important? Position players as far as third base are more important also?
So based off of your statement, you don't like the fact that your boy Bryce Harper got the contract that he got?
Well, there's exceptions.
Now there's exceptions.
Exceptions
now I see
the
how
best player ever.
Oh, now I see how
the
this
MVP
works.
of the league. There's exceptions.
It's an outrage.
We make exceptions for those guys, all right? But we'll keep in touch. I mean, listen, we'll keep continuing to talk about it, of course. And now I'm sure by the next week, I'm hoping that the Phillies make a signing or two and have something to talk about there as well. So it's definitely
I want winners.
That's worth noting. But on that note, let's shut it down.
All right, you guys missed any of this episode, you can always go to philly-experience.simplecast.com. We are available on all major downloadable platforms, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, the entire shabazz. I'm happy baseball is back ultimately. I'm disappointed that it took this damn long, but still.
I was over here expecting to watch bowling.
Yeah, honestly, I was mentally prepared for that.
March Madness right around the corner. Let's go.
Yes.
I want winners. I'm embarrassed.
Give me a green right slot, spider 2 Y banana.
Is that like a wise ass comment?